Hey everyone, Gaijin Goomba here. Okay, before we get into today's episode, I have an important announcement to make. After this video, Culture Shock is going to be moving to my channel for the foreseeable future. No, there's nothing going on between me and Matt or any of the other staff for that matter. We're still more than cool with each other. This is more of a technical thing because of YouTube's changes in how it promotes videos to viewers. Due to these changes, both Matt and I think it'd be best if I house my core content on my channel and see where things go from there. But Culture Shock isn't done, far from it. With every new game release, there's something to dissect and discover. So as long as people are still wanting to watch Culture Shock in its new home over on my channel, I will never stop making it. But for my last video here on the Theorists channel, I've been racking my brain trying to decide what would make for the most appropriate episode. There's something big I need to talk about when it comes to the newest God of War game, as I think I may have stumbled onto a clue that gives us a look into where the series is going for the next 5 to 8 years. But for my last video here on the Game Theorists channel, I wanted to cover something that highlights the legacy of what I've been trying to leave over the last 6 years. The core idea of how some of the most popular games we've ever seen are completely rooted in the living, breathing culture that surrounds us. And really, there's no better example than Pokemon. This is a franchise that I swear is going to completely take over the world if it hasn't already. I mean, for crying out loud, this is a game series that has continued to dominate over 3 generations of gamers, and there's no slowing down for it. I'm 32 years old, yet I still have vivid memories of playing it for the first time back when I was only 12, and I don't have that many childhood memories. Yet, even as an adult, I find myself enthralled by Pokemon's modern incarnations, with games like Pokemon X and Y, Sun and Moon, and lordy, we can't forget Pokemon Go. The mass cultural effect in that game on the US alone moved mountains. Thousands of players, complete strangers, coming together to chase after pieces of augmented reality data. It was so huge, it even made its way into politics.
But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
And E3, holy crap! The announcements about these new Pokemon games alone were more than enough to get people hyped without all the information drops we got this year. And if you still doubt the absolute power of Pokemon, just look at the Pokemon Gold and Silver beta leaks that came out earlier this month. All we had were a handful of sprites and people went nuts over it, making everything from artistic recreations to freaking Dex entries by fans. As a gamer, it's a series that stuck with not just me, but hundreds of thousands of people over 30 years, and it's not stopping anytime soon. But as a theorist, I can't even begin to explain how the cultural references in these games have influenced me as a content creator over the last 6 years. I've made dozens of videos talking about the culture and folklore this franchise borrows from as far back as August of 2012 to earlier this year. But in all my years of picking apart Pokemon from a multicultural level, there's one thing I've noticed about this franchise. No matter how diverse Pokemon gets with its designs or locations, Game Freak and Nintendo bring to every generation of Pokemon folklore flavor from Japan. I mean, just earlier this month, the Pokemon Center announced a new line of merchandise in the theme of Hyaki Yagyo, or Night Parade of 100 Demons, one of the most recognizable things when dealing with Japanese yokai monsters. With except, well, Pokemon. I mean it too, every generation of Pokemon has at least 1 or 2 direct references to Japan's folklore. Like, take Drowsy and Hypno for example, Gen 1 Pokemon. As a kid I thought these were some kind of composite hippo creatures, but no, they're literally one-to-one with a well-known yokai called the Baku, a tapir-like creature said to eat the dreams of humans. Now, while recently they've taken on a more benevolent position, only eating nightmares for the good of all, they've been described as monsters who devour all dreams, potentially devouring people's hopes and desires and leaving their prey a depressed husk of humanity. So yeah, you can thank the Baku exclusively for these guys as well as their signature move Dream Eater. But he's not the only one with a direct connection to Japanese yokai. You've also got Shiftry, a Gen 3 dark grass type who also has a one-to-one connection with an ill-tempered mountain spirit known as a Tengu. More specifically, a subcategory known as an Old Tengu. While there were lesser Karasu Tengu who were half human, half crow, Old Tengu were the alpha of the species, who typically had long flowing black or white hair, a long pointed nose, wore single-toothed Geta sandals, possessed dark powers to create illusions which they used to ambush humans, and finally, Old Tengu would wield a Hauchua fan that allowed them to control the winds themselves. One look at Shiftry's design and moveset and yeah, it's all there. The nose, the hair, the Geta, the fan, a moveset based on backstabbing in the wind, it's all there. Heck, Pokemon's Japanese references are so dense that sometimes they didn't even bother borrowing monster folklore and just straight up took concepts from ancient artifacts. In Gen 4, despite their underwhelming appearance, Bronzor and Bronzong are both modeled after critically important religious symbols of Shinto and Buddhism. In the case of Bronzor, it's modeled after one of Japan's 3 sacred treasures, the legendary mirror known as Yata no Kagami, or the 8-handed mirror. Mirrors by themselves represent truth and wisdom based on the idea that looking into it reflects back all things, both ugly and beautiful, but this particular mirror had a very important role to play in literally saving the world according to Shinto. In a world before humanity, Amaterasu, goddess of the sun, sealed herself away in a stone called Ama no Iwato after her jackass brother Susanoo destroyed her fields and trashed her house. Without the sun, darkness and demons walked the land unopposed. So, in a clever plan to get Amaterasu back out, the rest of the kami started feasting and celebrating. One goddess in particular, Uzume no Mikoto, got everyone's attention by dancing topless on a tub. This definitely got Amaterasu curious, but she wasn't fully captivated until she saw her own reflection in the Yata no Kagami, which clever Uzume tied to a tree earlier. Seeing her own radiant glory in the reflection and understanding her own importance, Amaterasu withdrew from hiding and the sun returned to the world. Not a bad origin story for such a simple looking Pokemon, huh? But even its more bizarre evolution, Bronzong has its own unique cultural roots. It's modeled after what's known as a Dotaku bell, which has origins as old as 400 BCE. These bells were sometimes used as warning sirens, but their true purpose was for community agricultural rituals to help literally ring in a good harvest. Some historians also speculate that these bells were used to summon rain, but there's not much evidence to prove that save for a few inscriptions. And when they weren't in use, the bells were actually buried with the intention of allowing the life force of the earth to funnel into it. Knowing this, it explains all of Bronzong's Pokedex entries. And as for the relation of Bronzong and Bronzor's evolutionary line, I suggest you check out an old folk story called Of a Mirror and a Bell. A pretty tragic tale of a lonely woman who lost her prized mirror to some greedy priests who wanted to make a sweet bell for their temple, and the revenge she got on them after death. Next up we got Gen 5 that had Darumaka and Darumantian, two Pokemon whose origins plainly come from Daruma dolls. Now, back in the 5th century, Daruma, also known as Bodhidharma, was the bringer of Zen Buddhism from India to China and subsequently Japan. He brought with him countless teachings, but the one principle he was most famous for was his meditation practices. Zen Buddhism teaches a very specific technique of sitting absolutely still, fixating your eyes on a very specific spot on the floor or wall, and enter a trance state where thoughts will flow in and out of the mind like water, never once allowing a particular thought to linger too long in the mind. In this state of meditation, what feels like moments to the meditator becomes hours of time, frozen like stone as thoughts flow in and out of the mind. Having done this for myself during my study abroad, I can tell you right now that 45 minutes felt like 5 in this state. And this is exactly where Darmanitan gets its meditative stone form from. But then you got Darumaka's ability to pull in its arms and legs into its body, and that forms connection to the ball-like appearance of the Daruma doll. And this is where the cultural relationship gets pretty morbid. During a 9-year Zazen meditation session, it's believed that Bodhidharma's limbs suffered from atrophy from non-use. Yeah, basically he stayed still for so long that his arms and legs fell off, which is why Daruma dolls lack appendages and why Darumaka can be seen without limbs. And there are even times that different Pokemon in multiple generations fall under the same cultural origin. Take for example Stantler, Deerling/Sawbuck, and Xerneas. All of them look drastically different, but all of them fall under one reference: Sika Deer. Generally speaking, the only unique thing about Sika Deer in the modern era involve those that live within Nara Park. 1,200 deer that roam the park in search of man-made deer cookies, and you better believe they'll do anything for them. But culturally speaking, deer played a vastly important role in ancient Japan. Sika deer are said to be messengers of the kami Takemika Zuchi no Mikoto, who resides in the Kasuga Shrine in Nara. East Asian alchemists also have claimed that their horns had strange and powerful properties which became the base for several tonics and potions that would restore one's spirit. This may explain the numerous Pokedex entries talking about the mysterious properties and subsequent poaching of Stantler horns, and not to mention, Route 36 where you actually find Stantler next to Violet City is geographically identical to Nara when comparing a map of Johto to Japan. As for Deerling and Sawsbuck, their unique characteristic of changing appearance based on season is also shared by the Sika deer. Sika will change their pelt based on seasons from light reddish brown in the warm months to dark brown and even black in the winter, similar to Deerling and Sawsbuck's autumn and winter forms. And finally, you've got Xerneas, the cosmic legendary deer Pokemon said to give regenerative life when its horns on its head glow. While most people have attributed this legendary Pokemon to Celtic deities like Cernunnos, it's possible that this Pokemon's life-giving properties comes from Sika deer as believed during the Nara period. According to the Harima Fudoki, and based on ancient descriptions of deer on Nara period Dotaku bells, people would sow rice plant seeds with the blood of deer as they believed that deer possessed a mystical power of regeneration, which was personified in their horns, which they grew, shed, and regrew every year. Just as Xerneas shares its eternal life force with its horns as a conduit, Nara period folk believed that Sika deer had equal powers of regeneration through their blood and their horns. Even within the most recent generation of Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, not one, but two of the brand new Ultra Beasts have folklore inspirations taken right out of Japan's history. Staccatica, codenamed UB Assembly, and Kartana, codenamed UB04 Blade. On the surface, Kartana's origins might seem simple enough. I mean, it's origami, plain and simple. But what folks might not know is that Kartana's style of origami isn't as simple as a crane or a helmet. Kartana's origami style is what's known as a noshi, and has been an important part of customary gift-giving and offerings since the 12th century. Back then, paper was extremely hard to come by. Sheets were difficult to make, which made them only available to the rich. Because of this, noshi became a sort of good luck talisman that would be attached to gifts between samurai and other high-class people for all manner of customary celebrations. Weddings, promotions, graduations, and so on. This is one possible explanation for the samurai-esque style of the Pokemon, though I have to say, if Kartana kept the original design of the noshi, instead of glimmering gold accents, it would be sporting long pieces of dried fish. But then there's also theories going around that Kartana is actually Shikigami, basically a paper homunculus that serves the will of an Onmyoji priest. But let's wrap up with Staccatica. At first glance, this walking fortress of bricks with eyes might seem like someone's drug-induced fever dream, but in actuality, it shares a semblance with yet another Japanese yokai known as Mokumokuren, or Many Eyes, which, to be honest, is equally horrifying. The Mokumokuren started off as a regular shoji paper screen door, but after falling into disrepair with several holes punched through its paper, monstrous eyeballs began forming in the holes. And if having a living wall staring at you all night wasn't bad enough, the Mokumokuren was said to be able to steal your eyes while you slept. While there's little in the Pokédex that can prove Staccatica is based on the Mokumokuren, the fact that each of the Staccatica's eye plates are technically individual life forms is scarily similar to the idea of Mokumokuren being made of dozens of other people's eyeballs. Oh, and these are just Pokemon, guys. I didn't even mention the fact that the first 4 generations of Pokemon actually take place in Japan if the maps are to be believed, but that's a video all its own. But you know, the craziest thing about trying to culturally analyze this franchise is that even if I were to break down every single Pokemon to its Japanese reference, I'd still only be halfway done. One of the things that Pokemon has done that I've seen few Japanese RPGs, let alone Japanese games themselves, do is expand beyond their borders. As Pokemon gained worldwide popularity over the years, so too did it broaden its realms of inspiration. What started off as Kanto, Johto, Sino, Hoenn, and the Sevi Islands, all references to real-life locations in Japan within the first few game entries, evolved into locations that were inspired from places all over the world. Like Pokemon Black and White's take on New York with Unova, or X and Y's take on Paris, France with Kalos, or even the Hawaiian Islands in Sun and Moon with Alola. And with them came even more brand new Pokemon who took inspirations from their homeland. And I admit, it's actually kind of daunting as a cultural theorist to even try to piece together all these connections. But I think it's really important to do so. Because in the many years I've been a game theorist, the greatest joy that I've found in my work isn't the fact that I've learned so many fascinating and esoteric aspects about the culture of the world, but the fact that so many of you have been enjoying it. Every meetup, every con, every signing that I've done, I've met countless people who tell me about all the things that they've learned through my videos. And as someone whose lifelong dream has been to just learn and teach, I couldn't have asked for more. For every view on a video, for every dollar that someone put into my Patreon, and for every person who decided to swing by my Twitch stream, I've been completely blessed by all of you. You are the ones who made this stream possible for me, and it's because of you guys that I can keep bringing culture to gaming and beyond. So from the bottom of my heart,
From the bottom of our hearts, we want to say thank you for making Culture Shock such a monumental achievement in our lives.
as the series continues over on my channel, Gaijin Goomba Media, we hope that you'll join us in our never-ending pursuit to learn all we can about the world around us through our favorite games. Heck, like I mentioned earlier, I've been non-stop digging into the Pokemon franchise for cultural references, and it's taken me everywhere from Japan, to China, to Ireland, to Hawaii, to South America, to inside the ring of professional wrestling. And there's still so much to look into, like learning how absolutely legit Greninja is as a historically accurate ninja. All of which you can check out over on my channel. Like I said, Culture Shock isn't even close to being complete, so I dearly hope you come along with us as we continue our journey to bring culture to gaming. But either way guys, as I've always said, until next time, this is Gaijin Goomba, signing out.